Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. If you've already subscribed to our channel, thank you very much. If you haven't, please do. And when you do, be sure and tap on the little notification bell button so you'll be notified every time a new video comes up. Well, probably looks like we've been dragging our feet lately. I got heavy feet, what can I tell you? I mean, we've had a lot of stuff to do. All sorts of comedy. And I find, I don't know if everyone else does, if I'm having a rough time, if I'm busier than I think I should be, if everything appears to be upside down, I'm not alone. I think everybody else is going through it too. And when I look around me, that's what I see. Everybody is really busy. Everyone's been affected by the weather. I mean, just all sorts of things happening. Everybody's health is a little funky. When it gets freezing cold, it can affect how you feel. Anyway, yeah, look at me here. My hands are frozen. But we've got the heater on in here right now, which means we've got a propane heater going. We've got the place well ventilated. If anyone's concerned, we've got it well ventilated. We got freezing air coming in. Anyway, my point being that if that heater gets a little too noisy, sorry about that. We actually need it because it's throwing heat for us. Anyway, let's get on to this thing. This thing, I promised I'd be showing more of it, and I'm showing more of it than I planned on showing because it seems to have more ailments than I planned on correcting. This is trying to help a lady out with her motorcycle, and as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, but it's going to come out of the other side a whole lot better. You know, I did show last time we were on, I did show that this clutch, that I was adjusting the clutch, and I'm really pleased with how it came out because, as I said, when you keep running lube down the cable, it just keeps getting more and more well saturated. And this thing, even sitting in the garage, has gotten much easier to pull.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's not a dainty little thing, but it is a nasty, raspy old motorcycle. We're just trying to make it as good as we can. Okay, and another thing I think I showed quickly that this is the size socket for the adjusting stud on the clutch. Now, by using a spark plug socket, which is 13/16, regular old plug socket, it also has a hex end on it here. So when you put a screwdriver through it, this one's a 1/2-inch drive, so it makes it real easy. You get that screwdriver in there adjusting that. Then when you get ready to tighten the nut, you can hold the screwdriver and tighten that nut with a 7/8 wrench.
Nice.
It's just like, this isn't just a spark plug socket, it's like the perfect clutch adjusting tool for your old cast iron Sportster. Okay, I did want to show that and I got to do it. What else did we do? I went over the brake and got it working because it was really, really frozen up. It was adjusted way too tight. The lever was bent. I did straighten this clutch lever, which I'm very proud of, to be able to bend that thing back into shape. It's probably took a hunk of a road out somewhere. And with about a 15-inch crescent wrench and then the lever on the bike, I was able to straighten it. And it works well, and the brake light works, and that's really cool. Okay, the next thing, which was really a big deal that I was not expecting, was the ignition. The bike ran so badly, I thought, well, I better check the points. I opened it up, and lo and behold, it had a Dynatek electronic ignition in it, which is a wonderful piece of equipment. The only thing is, I guess at some point the bolt backed off that holds the rotor on, and this rotor is all wallered out, and it was going like that in there, and pretty much Well, the whole inside of that housing was black with all of the material that's shaved off of this rotor. Okay, so I pulled that out, ordered a new one, and then came the advance weights. Now there's a spring in here. Ta-da, here it is. One of the springs on this advance mechanism that just really was sizzle fried. And so the whole thing just does not work well. The weights are really shot. And so what I finally did was just ordered a whole new unit for that. And I installed it all. Now we're going to go over that installation maybe on our next video. Because on this video I'm going to have to show you what came next. One thing seems to lead to another over and over again. I got it all done, timed, everything in place, the way I felt it should be. I want to mention when I install these advanced mechanisms, I lube them with anti-seize, which seems to last longer than grease or anything on it. This one obviously ran dry, nobody maintained it, and it committed suicide. Anyway, so
what'd you find?
What did I find? Well, I went to adjust everything. I got the timing right. I did everything, and I went to start it. It wouldn't start. Well, that's not right. And I checked my timing over and over again to see that I had it right. And that didn't do it. And I finally said, well, gee, let's check the valves and see if maybe they're mildly out of adjustment. The front exhaust valve does not close. So I thought I would adjust valves, and I said, you know, I have shown people how to adjust valves on knuckleheads and shovel heads and pan heads. We've never showed it on a cast iron Sportster.
Nope.
So I got my little tool that I made 100 years ago for holding the push rod tubes up on a shovel head. Because it's so similar to the Sportster, it'll work just fine. So we're going to go ahead with it just like they show it in the book. I look to see how they show it in the book. I like to show things pretty much the same as in the book so that if you want to go look it up, everything matches. It's easier to follow.
Oopsie.
So what I'm going to do... Oh, yeah, I guess we could do that. Thank you very much. You know, normally when we adjust knuckles or pan heads or shovel heads, we've got 3 wrenches, which I did bring 3 wrenches out, and then I went, no, wait a minute. These Sportsters only have two places to put a wrench. That's a pretty good picture. That really shows it as it is. Okay, and these are, being an old Sportster of the cast iron variety, this has solid lifters. These are not hydraulic valve lifters. You always have to make that distinction. What am I working with? These are solid lifters. So I'm going to turn this thing over by hand. It's in 4th gear with the spark plugs out, so I can take the wheel and turn it. And look at that. There's the exhaust valve opening. Now it's closing, and we can see the intake valve is starting to open, and now it's closed. And we can crank it around and just see how it works. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this one, just like the book says. I'll read it in a second. And we're going to just let that thing, you can see it dropping. Okay? We are sure now that that valve is closed. And that push rod is tight. Let's see how the book calls it out. Here we go. Okay, we got the tubes open already. Loosen the lock nut, then turn adjusting screw until there is barely perceptible play between the push rod and the adjuster screw. Adjustment is correct when the push rod can be rotated freely with your fingertips without any up and down slack. Okay. So we'll take this wrench here. And we'll back off the lock nut. Whoops. Well, it's turning the big adjuster there, isn't it? Mike, where did you get those wrenches? These are snap-on tappet wrenches. Okay, can we get this light a little lower here? Let's see if we can get in there a bit. I'm trying to, there. That's gonna just block you, isn't it?
Nope.
No? Okay.
That's actually beautiful.
Well, I think it's fairly attractive. I wouldn't say beautiful. Okay. There we go. Now we've got that lock nut backed off. See it? That's the lock nut. And then you can see where the bike wounded me. Okay, now we're going to take this one and we're going to turn it down. Now this stuff will probably turn with my fingers at this point. Much better.
Yep.
So now we're going to just back it off with my fingers again. Now this normally takes me a couple of 3 tries. And the reason it takes a couple of 3 tries, I want all 4 of them to match. You really are seeking perfection when you adjust the valves. Because if the valve is not closing, in other words, if this were too tight and that push rod is up a little more than it needs to be, what it's doing is it's hanging the valve open, which means you really have you don't have any compression. With no compression in the cylinder, the motor won't start. Once you get it started, everything's going to heat up and grow a little bit. It'll have more clearance. But until it's started, that thing has got to be not too tight. But right now I can turn it very well with my fingers. So I'm going to take this valve. Thank you. There you go. I'm going to take this big nut up here. Maybe I'll take that little lock nut and get it down there a little bit with my finger. None of this stuff is chewed up or messed up or anything, so, you know, so many of these older bikes, what happens is people have abused them. But I think that
Nobody's got to this part yet.
no, I think this lady's husband took very good care of this motorcycle. But, as I mentioned earlier, he passed, and she hasn't found anyone to help her that's been really good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm not adopting this thing. We'll get her going. Okay, now I can turn it with my fingers, which means there isn't a bunch of tension on it from the valve springs. Okay, now I'm going to turn this lock nut. Like that. Yeah, it's still, now it's a little bit tight. We're going to turn this one because I haven't tightened the lock nut down real tight yet.
Oh, okay.
See, if you don't tighten that lock nut down, you can get your final last adjustment so it feels like that. So now I'm going to hold that top one with this wrench and tighten the bottom one with the other. Now you can see I'm the guy that's no good and chews it up. There we go. There we go. Wait a minute. There it is.
Nice.
Okay. Now, once that one is tightened up real good, and by tighten up, I mean the lock nut. Right down here. We're going to try it one more time just to make sure. That's tight. Now, Oh, perfection. Absolute perfection. It's not loosey-goosey, but I can easily turn it with my fingers. There's no up and down shake.
So it's not loosey-goosey, it's lovey-dovey?
It's lovey-dovey. Lord, it was lovey-dovey. Okay, now, what I'm going to do, now I could have maybe not bottomed it right. Now is the time to check it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this motor over in 4th gear with the spark plugs out. Oh, look how loose that one is. That's way loose. So we're going to go around again. There's the exhaust valve opening. There's the intake valve opening. We're going to watch it carefully, and we're going to take it down till we're sure that we've really bottomed out there. Yep, we're down all the way now. Okay? And now it's the same as adjusting the exhaust. It's the same deal. So we're going to adjust the intake, and now the intake and exhaust will be right. We're going to do the other two just the same as we did the front two. And that's it. It's not any more complicated than that. In our next video, I think what we'll do is we'll go through the timing of this ignition system. Maybe I'll even pull it out and reinstall it, just so you can see exactly how it goes. It's not that complicated once you get those valves right. Everything good. Okay, until then, oh, first I gotta mention 2 things that are important. 1, our t-shirts. If anyone's interested in t-shirts, by all means, go to pacificmike.com and order one of our t-shirts. And if you don't want one for yourself, buy it for somebody who does. The other thing I wanted to mention was April 22nd. I'm going to say this every time we put up a video. April 22nd is the Hippie Killer Hoedown 2023. Hippie Killer Hoedown. Great show, great fun, music, flat tracking, cars and bikes on display, the whole bit. And it's just really, really fun.
Too.
Yeah, they're having camping this year. Anyway, it's on a big ranch in Temecula, California. Temecula, California. So by all means, look it up on the internet. Just go to Hippie Killer Hoedown 2023. If I get to have lunch with Cuddy sometime this week, I'll get some flyers from him. Maybe we can show one on the YouTube channel. But until then, I'll see you out on the road.